The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Paranormal Concept right here on Parasearch UK Radio with your host, Paul Rook.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this rather special edition of the Paranormal Concept Show. I'm your host, Paul Rook, and on tonight I'm joined, as always, by the lovely Kerry Greenaway. Hello, Kerry.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Oh, pretty damn good, thanks. Pretty damn good.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Have you had a really good week?
So far, so good.
Cool. Anything paranormal to report this week?
Anything paranormal?
No?
No, I've got a new blog up.
Oh, awesome. Cool. And what's the blog about?
Demons. Hashtag demons.
Okay, yeah, that's the one I haven't read yet.
Unbelievable, right? Unbelievable.
Although I have read your next blog that you haven't quite finished yet.
Yeah, that's a doozy.
I must say, everyone is in for a treat. Absolutely, it's going to be amazing. That blog, I can just sense it already.
That one may never ever get released. Everybody, that's all I'm saying.
Oh, it will. I've got the original version.
Oh, god damn it. Oh my god, I made a big rookie error on that one. No, I don't know. I'm going to have to edit it a lot, is all I'm going to say.
It's a good read anyway. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Funny, yeah. Most people will laugh at it, but there's a few that probably wouldn't.
I'm sure it'll be taken with a good humour.
It will never get released, everybody, is all I'm saying.
Anyway, tonight's show, we will be discussing Persinger's helmet.
Yeah.
Because Kerry likes this subject.
No, I find it fascinating. I find this one quite fascinating, to be fair.
I totally agree. I mean, because we was discussing this last week, weren't we?
Yeah, we was on an after show.
In-depth conversation all about it, and we're going to go through it as well tonight.
But what actually happened was we was in an after show party. We started talking about show concept ideas, right? You know, just like what can we talk about? We're running out of shows up there, so let's have a look at what shows we're going to do and whatnot. And then we was talking about mediums and how they work, and it went into this Persinger's helmet and the god helmet, same thing. And we were sitting there having this discussion, and we both went, we should actually just record this. This is the bit we should have recorded. Do you know what I mean? Because it was just flowing with ideas between us, and it was brilliant. And those are the conversations I like best, actually. Ones where you're sitting there and you're just talking concepts and ideas and theories and stuff like that. And those are the ideas that I like the best. So we're going to try and sort of go down that route tonight with you guys, really, aren't we? We're going to try.
Yeah,
it's very different when you're on air.
Try and recreate it, absolutely. Because until you mentioned it, I didn't know nothing about it. So for everyone else, do you want to just explain what this helmet actually does?
Okay, this is basically a helmet that has magnetic solenoids on the side of it, and it passes like a magnetic pulse through your brain. But the pulse isn't very strong; it's a very weak pulse. And what it's doing is it's interfering with the magnetic or the neurological patterns within your brain, and people were having experiences because of this. Now, remember, the current that's being passed through is actually very weak, so it's not like bad for your brain, but they were looking at it in regards to temporal lobes. So the solenoid magnetic pulse is being passed through your temporal lobes, and we know how that can have an effect on your mind from, lobotomies and stuff like that. So that's quite a central part of the, entering the brain with these magnetic waves. Now, it wasn't so much the experiment itself that's interesting. Well, it is quite interesting, but it's the experiences people were having whilst they were having this experiment put on them. So that's very basically what it is. Okay, but this it's been known as the God's helmet, as I've said. It's been known as the Koran helmet, and also as Persingers helmet. And basically, it looks like a motorcycle helmet with electrodes put on top of it, right?
Yeah. Well, that's it. It was invented by two doctors, Persinger and Koran. Mm-hmm. Is that right? And yeah, obviously that's why it was dubbed that name. But the other reason it was dubbed the God helmet is because of some of the experiences people were perceiving in this chamber while they were tied up to this helmet, and they claimed that they see images of Jesus and God. I'm assuming it was literally like the Christian God, because as I was reading through the article, they didn't specify any particular religions.
No,
so I'm assuming...
No, they didn't. But they also, what isn't addressed is when you look into it deeper, some people didn't have very good experiences either. So they focused on the positives, as it were,
Well, yeah, they
but
would.
Everybody experienced some form of effect. Bearing in mind, before they go into the experiment, they go into an acoustic room. Okay, so you're completely isolated, and it's also a Faraday cage. So you've got no external EMFs affecting it. You've got no external sound. So they're basically sensory deprived because they're blindfolded at the same time. Have this helmet on, and they run the magnetic programming through a computer, which works alongside the brain to affect different parts of the brain. So they're recording all of the data, and it's to do with the left and the right brain. Now, we've talked about this before, the left and the right brain.
Yeah.
And how each side has different things, right? Now, the left side is generally more dominant. But when they started passing fields through, the magnetic fields through, what they started to notice was there became a crossover point where the brainwaves were equal between the two, straight down the middle. Now, it was at that point the experiences were happening. Not at any other time. It was at that point of crossover, perfect balance between the brains that these experiences were happening. Now, some people reported just physical effects, I would say. Like they just were really relaxed and they felt tingling in their hands or their feet, or they felt something going on in their physical body. Some people reported feeling like there was somebody else in the room with them.
Yep.
Some people reported hearing voices. And some people reported having visions of God-like entities, or like we've said before, Jesus Christ, or a belief system. I would go as far as saying a belief system-based hallucination.
Yeah.
Right. That's how I would say that. But how fascinating that a magnetic field could, and I'm going to say could because there have been cases where they've tried to recreate this experiment and haven't had the same results. So that is the basis of scientific experiment.
I mean, it's almost like putting obviously the waves through someone's mind to almost trigger a mediumistic type of skill. Mm-hmm. So you're sort of activating parts of the brain that might not have been active before, thus opening the mind to that spiritual realm.
or experience. Just that. But as I say, but then you come into the argument, don't you? Is it spiritual, external, that they're then open to seeing, or is it actually just deep subconscious belief system? I'm going to go with the belief system thing on this one because it's coming from internal. It's a mind manipulation experiment. No matter what way you want to look at it, it's passing a external magnetic field through the brain to create an experience or to have an effect. Sorry, that's a better way of putting it. To have an effect. And this is then from an internal mind thing, is triggering something in your mind.
Well, yeah, that's it. I mean, I know when we was obviously talking about it before, we was talking about interdimensional communication.
Yeah, that's where it started. Yeah,
and who's to say that there isn't some sort of, I mean, your brain or our bodies are not containers to another dimension, ecosystem, whatever you want to call it, and what you're actually doing is opening your mind to receive signals from that.
Which would
so
be
it's
argued,
more like an inner space.
Which could be argued when you tune in, like meditation wise, or you're used to tuning into that particular frequency within your mind. You're opening that door basically to a different dimension, whether that be the spirit realm or, I don't know, angelic realm or whatever realm you want to class it as. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know, do I? But I find it very interesting scientifically that you can affect the brain in such a way that it then has these kind of experiences. So now, bearing in mind, I think the key point of this is the magnetic field is very low. We're not talking a higher magnetic field. So that is something that could be found within an environment.
Yeah, that's true. But then also you can argue that we only use 10% of our brain anyway.
True.
So you've still got 90% of your brain function sort of left derelict. It's not used.
That we know of. Only that we know of at the moment.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that we know of at the moment. But it could still, bypassing that energy through it, it could be unlocking or stimulating parts that we assume are not used.
But they know that it becomes, when they're obviously scanning the brain at the same time to get the data, but when they're looking at that, it's at that point of cross, it's that point of perfect balance and that crossover between both sides of the brain, not one being dominant over the other.
Yeah. It's,
Do you see what I mean? So because they can pinpoint the point it happens, that's what makes it relevant. Now, we have a precedent on this as well, which is quite key. Now, this is to do with acoustics, and I'm only going to reference it because I've not really looked into it that deeply. But there was experiments done in regards to infrasound and frequency, and they actually had experiences on a specific frequency, and I think it's 19. I think the frequency is 19. I'm just trying to find the reference. 19 hertz is the acoustic frequency that people tend to have more experiences at. Now, if that's in regards to frequency, translate that into magnetic fields being passed through your brain. Maybe that hits a certain specific frequency that then will make you have those experiences. We have an external frequency showing that effect. So why wouldn't an internal frequency? So what you're doing is you're actually affecting the brain internally yourself. You're actually just recreating that inside, aren't you?
Could that also be a link, our frequency link to the cosmos? The outer cosmos in space and the bigger energy and all that sort of thing?
No, because it's very personal to an individual. If it was to do with an external environment and thing, wouldn't that everybody would have the same experience? Everyone would see the same apparition. Everyone would hear the same voice in the night or the footsteps on the stair. Whereas how many times you go, did you hear that? And everyone goes, no.
Yeah, but then who's to say we don't, and we just perceive it as different things? I mean, in another conversation, I remember you saying that we all dream, but we can't prove, scientists can't prove that dreams exist.
True.
So who's to say that isn't our own?
They don't know where they come from. They can record brain activity, which is how they know REM and, the sleep things. You can get apps on your phone now that record this and how long you snore for and all sorts of things. It's great. It's not great. Haven't got that at all in any way, shape or form, everybody.
Yeah. Your kids are downloading that later just to prove how much you snore.
I don't snore. That's all I'm saying. I never hear myself, is all I'm saying. But, so they know dreams happen from the neurological patterns that are going on. What they don't know is how it works, the mechanics of how dreaming works. They know the physiological side of things.
Yeah.
But they still don't explain.
With that frequency, who's to say that it's not coming from the bigger cosmos into our minds through that link, and we're just perceiving it as a dream?
Only because we have proven that external manipulation of magnetic fields or electromagnetic fields can affect the human body to have those experiences.
So that works then.
That's how it works. So it's not external. It's not a cosmological thing.
We don't know. It could be.
The evidence would suggest otherwise, Paul. All I'm saying here.
Okay. If it's not a link to the outer cosmos, then what about the inner cosmos then?
Oh, God, that's a whole different concept, isn't it? The inner cosmos.
Yeah, absolutely. There is an inner cosmos, so we are our own gods.
Okay, so with this one, everybody within there... Now, I'm no psychologist, but from my understanding, obviously you've got your subconscious, and deep within your subconscious, you've got lots of deep-set things that you don't even know, experiences, emotions, triggers that you may not have, belief systems. There's lots of stuff in your subconscious, right? But then you've got your conscious, like your everyday mind that's thinking about what you're going to cook for dinner, what you're what you're buying for so-and-so's birthday, all that sort of stuff, right? And then that's quite a big crap pool, really, isn't it, of stuff in one little neurological brain firing thing.
Yeah, but I mean, it does go deeper than that, because we've got... Essentially, I mean, as I said before, we are literally a whole ecosystem within ourselves. It's not just like with you. It's just not Kerry. You've got so much inside you. You've got like the DNA. You've got all the little protons and neutrons and everything else. And it is literally a whole ecosystem to make you work.
I wouldn't go ecosystem. I don't think that's...
Well, you've got...
It's like a machine, isn't it? Everything's got a working part and everything affects it. It's like a car, if you think about it as a car. Do you know what I mean? And the car's only going to perform the food and stuff you put in it. But within that car, you've got like a wealth of experience and knowledge and experience. Yeah, I said experiences.
But I mean, even down to the antibodies in your bloodstream. It's almost like a life form all of its own, because it's protecting your blood from all the bad stuff that you put into it.
But that's all it is.
But it's still a living...
But it's not a cosmos, is it? So we've gone off on a tangent as to whether it's a cosmos or not. It's not a cosmos. It's just a living entity. That's all your body is. Now, there is obviously... no, there isn't obviously at all. But we boil down to what is consciousness then, don't we? That is the basic question, the fundamental question there, is what is consciousness? We know the mind can affect the body. Mm-hmm. Right? We know that. Yeah. We see it time and time again. Now, again, there's no medical proof on that, but the belief and the intention that your mind, the strength of your mind can have effects on your body, Right, okay. I have psoriasis, so if I get super stressed, what's the first thing that's affected? My skin. It's a fact. Can't help that. It's just an effect that comes out. If I get super, super, super stressed, I lose weight, which is great. Or I get really anxiety, which, I lose weight. But that's just how my body is made up. But that shows my mental state having an effect on my body.
Mm-hmm.
So my consciousness, my emotional, physical, spiritual, mental state, which builds up my consciousness, affects the physical meat sack that I live in.
Yep.
That everybody kind of knows that bit, right? But external influences can affect your meat sack, and it's a two-way street. So your physical well-being, if you get really ill physically, your meat, I'm going to call it a meat sack because that's such a lovely term, right? Your body, can be affected and get ill, right?
Absolutely, it can, yeah.
Yeah, that will affect the other four areas of your consciousness. That will do. You will get, when you're in pain, when your physical body is not working to its optimum, that affects those other areas. In the same way as when your mental well-being is not right, then it will affect your body, your physical.
Yeah, so why can't
So it's a duality.
So technically then external influences can still affect you?
Of course they can.
So which then, if there's an external frequency, it can link to your internal frequency. Because it can affect that.
Which isn't a cosmology at all, is it? It's just not a cosmos within yourself. That is just a physical and mental experience, which is what we're saying. This is coming internally. This is an internal thing, not an external thing. Although the force is external in regard to Persingers' helmet, right, which is the magnetic field that's being passed through the temporal lobes to affect your brain, that's an internal thing coming out. And the internal thing is so, like you said, it's so complicated. Do you ever really know? Then you go into conversations of, can you ever really know somebody? You don't.
No.
So you don't even, most people aren't even aware of some deep set belief systems they've got in place. Those most belief systems are set in your subconscious from the years between 1 and 7.
I mean, I did see in that article that there was a guy, he was an atheist, and as he was brought up, he was Roman Catholic, so he had that instilled in him when he was a child. And obviously when he grew up, he became an atheist. And when he went through this situation, he saw an image of Jesus.
Yeah.
And it scared the living daylights out of him, I suppose. But
see, I wouldn't say I've got I suppose I have got some C of E because I was brought up through the school education system with the C of E. When I came through school, it was hymns at like break time. And what's it called? We all sit in a hall and you have to sing.
Assembly.
That's the word, thank you. At assembly time and stuff like that. So there was, I would say there probably, more than I realise, I probably have a C of E. But on top of that, I've built different belief systems as I've grown up. And I would say probably my faith is very omnism. I don't believe anything specifically, but I have a general belief, if that makes sense, in regards to religion, this is. Yeah? But underneath all that, this age, omnism, or however it's said, I probably actually have got a C of E. So if I was to be manipulated mentally and I had a vision, the chances are possibly I may well have that kind of vision or hallucination. Do you know what I mean? Because it's so deep set and it's something I don't even think about these days. But the other side to this is, right, we were talking about frequencies, weren't we? Now, I had a sound bath, and this is going back absolutely ages ago. And I was heavily into meditation and spiritualism at that point. and I had this sound bath, which was a fantastic experience. But part of that experience, I saw Jesus. I saw a Dalai Lama kind of character-y kind of guy. And I saw my spirit guide as well. Right? So I actually saw, and I knew who it was. I mean, you know, it looked like the guy out of the Siggy Soggy kind of film. But that's what I put my perception on what he would look like. But it didn't look anything like that. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, you're not Jesus. But again, doesn't that show that comes internally rather than externally? Because it's actually as I would imagine him to look like.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, when people, like, if I was to ask you what you think God would look like, God, what's your image of God? What do you think he looked like?
He would look like something out of Botticelli or a Leonardo, a Renaissance type painting. You know, the long white beard on a cloud with a toga type thing on.
I think most people would come to that sort of image of God.
Exactly.
So, you know, I don't. I don't think of God like that. I just think of it as energy. I just picture him as a ball of energy. And then when it's your time to go, your energy joins the bigger picture.
But that's my point. That's now. With all your years of experience and learning and knowledge, that's what you now look at it as. Yeah?
But that's what I got from...
How did you grow up? What was your faith when you grew up?
It was Church of England. It still is. But I've gone through like the Alpha course, the Christian Basics course, and all that sort of stuff to do with the church, and that's what I took away from it.
How old was you when you did that?
About 22, 23.
But this is what I'm talking about with layers of belief system on top of belief system. It's not as simple as saying, I believe in God. If you ask me what the image is, that's the image in my head. If you ask me what he stands for, it's a typical C of E kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Because as you go through life, you evolve, you become... And actually, in this society, this is one of the really great things. You're allowed to, in where we live, we're allowed to explore different options and have different... be open to new experiences and explore different avenues in a way that there's a lot of people in the world that don't have that opportunity. So our belief systems are layered. They're not one thing. They're layered. But when you manipulate your brain, does it go back to that very first belief system that was set in place? Because I just find the effects that this helmet had on people, as I say, they were very varied. Some people didn't have... reported nothing, bearing in mind they went into the experiment being told they're just going to be relaxed.
Yeah.
So there's no expectation there on what they would experience. And it was only afterwards, obviously, they're questioned. Only 1% actually had the God experience, which is quite low.
So the only reason I suggested about the frequency sort of unlocking parts of the brain is because I'm trying to link it to the fact that no matter where you go in the world, there's always a race of people that will have this underlying faith in a God, whatever religion that happens to be.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can go to places like the Amazon and, you know, this tribe of people that's never met anyone from the Western or Eastern world before will have a core faith. And I'm just thinking maybe it could be something to do with the frequencies in their mind to put that into their belief system.
Well, I don't disagree because you can. Right, when we talk about manifestation and intention, it's about putting your mindset and your it's about putting your mentally, spiritually situation into a frequency. So the key to manifestation work is actually changing your frequency into the frequency you want. So basically, if you're looking for love, you've got to act like you're loved. Like you're loved up, right? And you're loved up with yourself, you're loved up with your life, you'll attract love in your life that way. That's a key of manifestation work. So these experiments are basically saying, if you change the frequency, you will experience something. You're right. Are we able to do that individually? Are we actually able to change our own personal frequency just by changing our mindset? That's a fascinating concept.
So I do think we can, and I've always, you know when you walk into a room and you've got this instant dislike for someone, it's almost like their vibrations and frequencies are not on the same level as yours, and that's how I take it. Mm-hmm. So with people with friends and stuff, their vibe and their frequencies are on the same sort of level. That's how I envisage that.
But isn't that exactly what it is? We talk about it in terms of psychic vampires or empathic, picking up intuition, picking up the vibe. Is it? I'm with you on this from a spiritual perspective. I'm with you on this. It's about picking up on that frequency or that vibration that's surrounding you at that time, whether or not that's coming from people that you're surrounding yourself with, or it's people that, even your environment. We was talking to Cal Cooper about Dr. Cal Cooper. When we
so just name drop there.
Oh no, like a little name drop. We was talking about positive mindset. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And he was saying how your environment can affect your mood, basically. So they looked at a lecture hall where it was like a pea green colour, and there was no natural light, and there was no plants or anything in there. It was just basically a really boring lecture hall. They changed the environment. They put windows in, they put plants in, they changed the colour of the walls, made it a lot more nicer and comfortable and inviting. People performed better because their environment affected their mental mindset. Now, you can do that for yourself. So, yes, I think if you're going out, so take it to the paranormal field, right, we all know that before an investigation, there's a build-up, isn't there? We all have the build-up.
Oh, yeah,
right? So you book your event. It might be 6 months away, so not much goes on. But as you draw closer to the event, there's a level of adrenaline and excitement when you think about that location.
Yeah.
Right, so effectively, what you're doing is changing your vibration because you're building up to an event, so you're gradually changing your vibration. So by the time you get on that investigation, your vibration could be set at such a point that you will experience something because you've set your vibration and frequency to experience it mentally. So it could be coming from an internal perspective rather than an external.
Yeah. All that from the God helmet, eh?
all this comes out from one thing that we looked at, which was the Persinger helmet.
But equally, it could turn it the other way as well, because I've been on plenty of investigations where the mediums have said that the spirits are just holding back and watching because they're not too sure on what you're doing. So maybe it's not what you're doing that's the issue. It could be just that you're emitting a certain vibe that they're not sure of.
When we looked at when we talked about ghosts protecting a location, and I went off on a tangent on that one, didn't I?
Yeah.
And we talked about how different areas of the academia view consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the categories, I can't remember which one it was now, they said that they see consciousness as a transmitter.
Okay.
And I said, well, if you can transmit, why can you not receive? That makes sense to me. The transmitting, receiving, you are doing both. So when you're talking about you're picking up things from other people, oh, here we go. We're going to go into telepathic interaction in a minute. Why can't you do that like you say, on a vibration level? So that's why you resonate with a person if you meet them for the first time, or you don't. Yeah. Or are you just recognising qualities within that person, and that comes through from body language, looks on faces? I mean, God, how often have we misjudged somebody's look and it's just a bitchy and rest face?
Yeah.
Or resting bitch face, sorry. You know what I mean? And you think, God, they're a right moody person. I don't really... And then they start talking, you think, oh, actually, they're all right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So how much...
I mean, I also get that from the Friday night show, for example. Now, I listened into the Friday night show last Friday, and the energy, the vibes and the energy was just overwhelming for me because I'm quite calm and relaxed, and it was just like slam in your face.
The Friday night show is very much like that. That's why we call it the fun and frolic show. It's mad, it's fast paced,
Absolutely.
It is very, very energetic and you know, very humorous. You know, we try and be funny on that show. We try and be funny on that show. So that is the vibe of that show. But you get to one of, you know, I don't know, Haunted Histories or Tonight, these kind of shows. They're a lot more serious. They're a lot more paced. They're a lot calmer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and that is the vibe. But people have those vibes too. We talk in the spiritual field as everything organic having its very own specific energy field. So nothing is the same. It's all got its own individual energy field.
And this is why Prince Charles talks to his plants.
We've talked about this concept before, though. How you can affect. Again, that was on the Our Locations Protected show. How you can affect something with words have power. Whether you say those words internally up here in your brain, or whether or not you're externalizing those. If in fact, actually, if you're externalizing, you're influencing. Your words have power externally. When you say them to yourself, this is why when we talk about, oh gosh, we have gone down a different rabbit hole. When we talk about terms of your inner mind monkeys, Lisa Michaels used to say that term, your inner mind monkeys. And last thing at night, you should be all positive because you marinate in positivity through the time you sleep. You are what you feed yourself. So if you're feeling, I can't, I won't, I'm not allowed to, you know, you put those restrictions on yourself, the self-worth. Why would anybody want me? Do you know what I mean? All that mental mind chatter that goes on, that negativity. You're telling yourself that. You're telling yourself you're not worthy. You're telling yourself that you're not good enough. You're telling yourself that. If you're telling yourself that internally, that's what you're going to be showing, whether you realise that or not. That's what. Whereas if you're saying, I can do this, I am good enough, I am worthy, you're going to exclude a confidence that's intangible, unmeasurable, but is received by everybody external from yourself.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
So it doesn't prove anything because we haven't got data or anything to suggest that, but doesn't that suggest that we are able to influence our own minds? I mean, there are so many different cases in so many different areas, from the medical field through, of people using mind over matter. In fact, I thought last week on the Superhuman show we might have gone down this route a bit, of people performing extraordinary feats with their body. You know, people can put, I don't know, stabs themselves through the skin and stuff like that with great big needles. I mean, God.
Yeah, I think that might just be an illusion, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Possibly, but you know, we've all seen extraordinarily physical feats.
Yes, definitely.
And that's a mental process as much. How many times have we said a marathon isn't physically just, you don't physically just run a marathon?
No, it's mental training as well. And although we didn't go into it, we sort of touched on it when I was talking about the guy in the ice. And he actually physically trained himself to suffer subnormal temperatures for a long period of time. So that not only is it his body's being trained into it, it's the mind as well. Mm-hmm. So we sort of touched on it briefly.
Yeah, I mean, you look at David Blaine. He performed some extraordinary mind over matter feats. So those prove you don't underestimate your own mind, the power of your own mind. That is the driving force. Now, look at it in regards to, if you look at it in those kind of terms and go, okay, so you can train your mind to do these physical extraordinary feats. What else can it do that isn't physical? We, you know, when we talk poltergeists, we talk about it being an externalisation from people within the location, generally. Young kids, you know, it's linked to kids. It could be menopausal. It could be male-female combo. It could be, you know, that's what's been looked at in regard to poltergeist phenomena. Basically, an externalisation of inner situations, should we say?
Yeah, inner feelings or emotions, and especially emotions, I think, is a big part of that.
That's not a ghost. That's an externalisation of an internal process.
Yeah.
But Guy Leon Playfair would say that basically you've put that energy out there, and an external entity, he would go more elemental type entity, would come in, play with the ball of energy that's been put out there from you, because it's just wafting around apparently up to that point. And then as they're playing with this ball, that's where the bangings and the crashes, and that sort of thing would come through. Not actually I would think on that, but that's what Guy Leon Playfair's theory is on that one. Then once the energy is expelled, the poltergeist goes.
My theory would be that because it's untrained, it's not focused energy on anything in particular, so it's more of a telekinesis type of issue.
Which, again, what is telekinesis? Something that's created internally that's externalised.
Exactly. And because it's not focused and the person's not trained, that's why you get the doors slamming and stuff, rather than a controlled moving the chair out so someone can sit in it and stuff, like in the movies.
I mean, going back to energy, frequency and vibration, there is talk of some Dalai Lamas. I think it's them people. I think it's that Buddhist, Tibetan kind of way, that can move rocks with their mind.
Yeah.
If that's the case, people had the ability or had the training to move rocks with their mind, then that brings things like pyramid building and some of the massive structures that they can't work out how they did, and they go, it's alien, right? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe people actually had this ability purely through mental power. Possibly.
It's a long shot, I think, that one, to be fair.
Well,
there are technologies that they did use that we've essentially forgotten. So again, it's possible. I still think it's a long shot, but it's a theory. Yeah. It's a theory at the end of the day.
It's a possibility. No one can disprove that. No, none of the theories can really. But at the end of the day, I just find the whole thing incredible. I actually find, out of all the paranormal stuff, I find the mental processes more fascinating side of it. And the more I research, the more I read, and the more I learn, I see belief systems all the time. I mean, I've just done a blog on demons, haven't I? And I asked the question: when you look through the historic meaning and the way the word has been changed and the belief systems behind the word has changed throughout the years, when you look at that and when you go right back to the very origins, they were personified idols, I suppose, of things like jealousy, greed, all the negative lower level emotions that people have. What if over the years that belief in an entity encompassing those, and they then get called demons, were actually an externalisation of what people were feeling? Where I've talked quite a lot in blogs recently about tulpas and Janius loci, and that's tulpas being an externalisation of something, a visualisation you create. So you can do this, you can achieve this, but I mean, it's not easy. We're not talking it's an easy process, but it's physically possible to do. I'm sorry, mentally possible to do. So what's to say? These experiments that they started doing with passing a magnetic field through the brain, who knows where that's gone now?
Yeah, and who knows what direction it's going to take us in the future, because it is literally opening people's minds to those possibilities, whether it be the religious God, Jesus, and all that, or even if they have a bad experience. Because I mean, it could even go into like the devil and Beelzebubbles.
Doesn't quite so scary when you call him Beelzebubbles, is he?
No, Beelzebubbles is a cat, But yeah, I mean, it could go quite the opposite way, to be fair. It depends on, again, what sort of person they are, I would have thought.
Yeah, as I know, there were people that did have bad experiences, but it was tested. So they did try to recreate it, and it failed. And as we know, what does the scientific field say? It has to be recreated time and time again. It was put out to peer group peer group review even, and they say that some of it was actually flawed. You know, some of the experimentation was flawed, that the results weren't standing up, that again, it was almost like a sensationalism media. They caught onto this God vision thing and blew the experiment out the water, when actually you look into it again, it's looking into it a bit deeper and finding the actual experiment wasn't it. Not everybody had that experience.
I mean, it's just actually dawned on me that it also simulates the after death experiences.
Yeah, your body's shutting down, your body's going through a trauma.
Yeah, and if it's like almost a power surge in your brain, it could also trigger that sort of response. And there have been people, obviously, that have seen the light, they've seen their loved ones, they've seen God, Jesus. There are cases where they've actually gone the other way and gone in, well, what they class as hell, and they've got the devil and all that sort of thing. So it sort of does make sense.
Mm-hmm. And some people just felt a presence in the room. You take that into the paranormal field, you've got a low magnetic field in the location area, and then people are going, I'm sensing a spirit. Well, it possibly could be the magnetic field of the environment having an effect on you, and not actually a presence in the room. It's just what your brain is telling you is there because of this magnetic field. It's a possibility. As I say, we quickly looked into a study done by Steve Parsons on infrasound, and they found that in a ghost walk in Edinburgh, there was a really low level for infrasound sound, and people were reporting experiences. And time again, that's another thing. It's a frequency, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you've got a frequency in the environment that's unmeasurable because you haven't got that kind of equipment to measure, that could be actually what's creating the experience from yourself, not actually from the location. So everyone's running around the same locations going, God, this is like the most haunted location in the world. And actually, if they went in with proper, like, if a scientist with proper frequency vibration kind of equipment went in, it could be something as simple as this 19 hertz that seems to be, they call it the fear frequency, because people have experiences at that frequency. So it could be something like that.
Do you think then that some of the tech that some teams go in could also have an effect on you and what you could possibly put out and manifest, such as like the REM pod, because that puts out electronic magnetic waves, doesn't it?
Obviously, you're talking tech. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know that you can get an EMF pump.
Yeah, I know.
I mean?
Obviously, there's
like
stuff out there that puts the theory behind them is that obviously they're putting electromagnetic fields into the air so that spirit can feed off them and be stronger.
Yeah.
But if then with this God helmet, it's putting those through your mind to activate certain areas of your mind to manifest things, then surely you're going to be picking up. If you're standing next to the CM pump, it's going to be doing effectively the same thing. So you're manifesting spirit if it happens to be there. Not be there, but
I see exactly what you're saying, and I actually agree with you. And I don't know enough about tech to argue the point that no, they don't. But again, I go back to the original experiment. The magnetic fields being passed through were very low, lower than a mobile phone, of what you would hold a mobile phone to your ear. The magnetic fields are lower than that. So that So we talk about this tech. Isn't that a possibility?
I think it's a possibility because and I would have thought it'd be stronger than what you would put through a phone. But then, how many people go into an investigation with their phones on as well? That's another issue.
Quite a few these days. I would say the majority do, because they do seem to do it live feeds all over Facebook, so they have to have their phone on, don't they, and their Wi-Fi on, otherwise they wouldn't be able to go live. Yeah, I mean, I think these are considerations. I think these are the areas people need to be considering on their investigation, not just jumping to the actual assumption that because you've experienced something, it was a ghost. It may possibly not. It might be the external influences on your brainwaves that's actually causing that experience. Your belief system is actually colouring. When we talk elementals and fairies, this is another thing I wanted to say in regards to how people saw things. We talk about elementals and fairies and the fae, that sort of thing, appearing as you would expect them to appear.
Yeah.
That comes from a belief system. So we're saying that the spirit can telepathically garner from you what your belief system in what they should appear as, and then appear as that.
Yeah.
Right. But that's a folklore thing. That's a mythology folklore thing. What if the environment is making you see fairies and fae and the folklore that have come out? Who knows? We know certain periods of time had a higher... when we talked about Atlantis, we talked about at the time Atlantis first... The legend of Atlantis was first born. There was a huge amount of volcanic activity in the Mediterranean at that time. Yeah, so we even looked into that side of things. That could have been producing higher magnetic fields which were affecting people's minds, which is what birthed creativity. Think about all the work that was done in regards to physics and, think Plato, think Socrates, think those kind of people. The work or the Pythagoras, all those kind of people were around at that period of time. And the electromagnetic fields could have been allowing their mind to access things that they wouldn't necessarily have thought. And then you look at the mythology, maybe people were actually manifesting or seeing things because of the geometrical or geomagnetic fields or the electromagnetic fields. Who knows? I mean, do you not think that's a possibility, or am I going way off track here?
No, I actually think there could be something in that, because I watched this documentary about evolution, and there was like Neanderthal man and all that, and then we had this huge evolutionary jump.
Yeah.
And then we started learning, and we obviously fire, and then it just progressed from there. So maybe there's something in that. And that there was a catastrophe at that point in our evolution that made us have that big jump to what we are now. So that I can totally understand that. I can get that.
Rather than an alien coming down and affecting our DNA, and then all of a sudden we're amazing, right?
Well, yeah. I think I agree,
that makes more sense to me than the alien factor. Although I don't knock the idea of other life forms out there, but are they going to be more advanced than us? Highly doubtful. That's where I sit with it. I'm not discounting the fact that there's a possibility of other life forms out there, that we're just an anomaly in the middle of the universe with this little world of people talking about consciousness and our mental mindset and stuff like that. But whether or not they've got the ability to, I don't know, pop down from outer space. I mean, God, if you listen to some of them, then they've got like hundreds of different alien species visiting us. I mean, God, the skies should be absolutely full of...
The rammed. Should be rammed.
Exactly right. I just want to have a quick look at the chat room. Richard has put a few comments in there. He said, going back to the earlier part of the conversation, he said, the more I think about experiments like this and the paranormal in general, I'm really starting to arrive at the conclusion, as best I can, that this phenomena is created by yourself. However, the traditional view of the paranormal, i.e. spirits of dead, etc., is still the one everyone seems to prefer to pursue, as it requires the least work to understand and doesn't require an in-depth knowledge. Oh, that's a little scathing, Richard.
Yeah.
And he said, where meditation comes in, as what I understand, you could class it as self-mind manipulation. I agree with that. It was certainly something I was aware of when I was trained to do it. So we're talking about the mind power, you having the power within your own mind to create what you want. whether that be manifestation in everyday life or whether that be external. And then he goes on to say words. We were talking about words have power. When delivered with intention of what they mean, they are powerful. This has been known for a long time, especially in the occult community. This is why, to this day, when talking about words and putting them together, you spell them. And again, that is an incredibly powerful concept in regards to occult or ritual work. Words have power. You put it out there.
Oh, they do.
It does, and it does. And Mark has said, someone said to him once that if you stare at something in the dark, your mind will make you see things that are not there, which is true. We've talked about pareidolia. We've talked about audio pareidolia before now. We've talked about musical ear syndrome and how infallible these senses of yours actually are in those kind of environments. Your mind is exactly the same. We've talked about false memory and stuff like that before now as well, haven't we? So when you start looking at all these concepts together, you can't kind of trust anything, really, can you? So if you
can't, can you really?
So if we're looking at experiments where people are having visions of a belief system, effectively under manipulation from a magnetic field, not a geomagnetic field, it's just a magnetic field, then who's to say that isn't the case? And these experiences are all internal, not external. And when we're standing around in the dark in the middle of the night searching for ghosts, all we're actually doing is trying to manifest it ourselves.
Yeah, we're looking internally as opposed to externally.
We could do that from the comfort of our own homes in the warm, everybody.
We could. But it's so much fun going out to all these cold castles of a night.
Apparently so.
Yeah. Like, on that bombshell, we've pretty much come to the end of the show. So do you want to run through what's coming up this week?
Okay, tomorrow night on Haunted Histories, Penny has got Mr. Richard Estep in the studio talking all about Farrar School, which has been highlighted in Haunted Magazine this week. Then Parasearch Radio has got Eric and John from the Memphis Empath Paranormal Society on with them. Then on the Friday, I go from talking quite intelligently like tonight to the Anunnaki on Friday. That's what's happening now. Before we go, I have to address Ness in a Dress.
Okay.
Do you know about Ness in a Dress?
I do. I remember you saying about it yesterday, I think it was on the show.
Ness is a lovely, lovely person who goes out paranormal investigating with the Paranormal Sisters and the Paranormal Charity Warriors, and they are raising money for lipodystrophy. Now, Ness is a bit of a tomboy, right? She never wears anything pretty. She don't feminine herself up, yet she is dead pretty, and when she does, she looks the bomb. So they're all trying to raise money to make Ness investigate in a dress. Right.
Sounds
so
cool.
If you'd like to donate to get Ness to investigate in a dress, she's going to so hate me by the end of this week, then you need to pop over to the Paranormal Charity Warriors page or check out the Parasearch Radio page, because we've got it the link has been shared onto there too. So don't forget, do that everybody.
Excellent.
We want to see Ness investigate in a dress. And they'll make her do a live on Facebook as well. They will make her.
Fantastic. And on next week's show, we're going to be discussing animal spirits, such as like the animal totems and spirit guides and things like that. That'd be cool. I think that's where we're going to go with that one.
We're going a bit more woo-woo.
Yeah, a little bit way.
Woohoo! We're going a little bit more woo-woo, a little bit more spiritual next week on that one. But again, fascinating topic.
It is, absolutely. So I want to thank everyone in the chat room for joining us tonight. And I want to thank everyone that's not listened tonight and going to listen in the podcast later on. Just give you a shout out as well. And thank you, Kerry, for joining me again tonight. Absolutely blast as always.
Well, yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Absolutely. And it's good night from me.
And it's good night from me.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web. to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.